Good Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast with Austin Price, Jesse Simonton, and Rob Lewis. I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along on this Friday, a mailbag edition of the podcast. But before we get to those questions, we want to welcome to the program Blue Water Climate Control, proud sponsor of the podcast. And Jeremy and his staff over there do great work. We're going to talk about them throughout the podcast in the coming weeks as well. But happy to have them aboard and a part of the Volquest.com podcast. Is again, lots going on for Tennessee. Lots going on in recruiting, lots of unknowns. We got coaching stuff, search stuff. We've got hoops. We got a lot to get to on this edition of the podcast, again, brought to you by Blue Water Climate Control. All right, let's just jump right into it, guys. First question right out of the gate. I was asked some, kind of get settled in type deals, but let's jump right into it because this is going to be asked a million times. PTSD Vol wants to know, give a full rundown, give a layout of Zach Evans.
Pertaining to his recruitment.
Lay it all out there is what he says.
He's not met with any coaches this week. No in-home visits. Will he go anywhere this weekend? At this point, I'm going to lean towards no, and which would give Tennessee and any other school that's really kind of into him another kind of swing here, before they have to come off the road officially. So, would be surprised if he took the visit by anybody at this point. If you're not taking one all week, why take one now? But hey, you can't discount the chance if he does not take an official visit somewhere. Tennessee, Ole Miss, and then
Texas. I think it's a 3-team race. I think that's what it is right now.
See, but the kid shot down A&M so many times.
He had 100%, but with this kid.
There's nothing.
There has been so many. I forget where I read it exactly, but they did like a beat-by-beat blowdown of Evans's kind of the roller coaster nature of his recruitment, where he's pushed back his announcement date at least 3 different times. The irony is he's never publicly committed anywhere. We know he signed with Georgia, but he's never publicly committed anywhere. He's allegedly silently committed to multiple schools. He's missed multiple games, this season due to suspension, 2 or 3 at the beginning of the year, and then the state championship game. The reality is that no matter what happens come Wednesday, there will be no final answer to this Zach Evans deal until he shows up on said campus.
I agree. And again, you never know if Texas A&M, to me, because they're close, I don't think he wants to necessarily stay close, but maybe that's the easier thing for him to do ultimately. I think I'm lean more towards Austin, that it's probably Tennessee, Ole Miss. But I just don't know that you can rule anybody out at this point, which I think is what you're saying, which is why I think you put Texas A&M in there as the third school. I don't see it being Oregon. I don't think he's going to end up.
Not unless he visits Oregon or Southern Cal.
Yeah.
Unless he goes out there.
With the LOI situation, could he just decide one week he didn't want to visit Oregon in March?
He could.
That's the thing that
he's got one more official left.
One more official, yeah.
That he could take it.
But to clear up that point, because this was asked about to AP and I. Okay, so Jeremy never went in home. Because Jeremy never went in home, this is just because Zach Evans is a 5-star. This kind of stuff happens all the time where a kid may not sign, a la Bryce Thompson. Jeremy couldn't go in home with Bryce Thompson months later because he never used an in-home visit. He's off the road after this weekend.
Right.
And so that was multiple folks on the GQ were asking AP and I about that. He can't get in. Jeremy Pruitt did not get to go in home. Other coaches didn't either, but specifically this week, that was a bullet that Tennessee was unable to use.
To this point, obviously they could, go later tonight or,
But we do not expect that.
Or Saturday. Yeah, you could in theory, but it doesn't. If he hadn't let you in all week, it's hard to imagine he's going to say, "Hey, come on down Saturday and hang out."
The
with
safe
me.
thing to do is just to say it's a total coin flip between 50 different schools, and you wouldn't be inaccurate there. Again, I lean back. What I said the other day, I think Tennessee, is in a pretty good spot here. But with this kid, it literally changes by the hour. He was taking a visit to Florida State this weekend, then he wasn't. Then he was going to Oregon this weekend, then he wasn't. Has some interest in Ohio State, and then that falls through. It literally changes all the time. Florida State doesn't have an offensive line. Ole Miss has no history of being a real contender. Likes a lot of things about Tennessee, but obviously there's still some question marks there. Georgia moved on, or he moved on for them, whatever you want to say.
Right.
LSU, they lost traction last month, for other reasons.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Maval, different Maval. So it's not her. Okay, this is a different one. Wants to know
Identity theft.
Let's just assume that Tennessee does not land Evans. Who are the key running back prospects for 2021?
Travion Henderson. Tennessee's going up there today to see him. That includes Jay Graham. So, Tennessee's going to go see Travion.
Cody Brown.
Cody Brown will be here this weekend.
Can Jay get him in with Shipley?
Yeah,
I think
Shipley seems like a real stretch to me. I just think that
agree.
kid's going to go to Notre Dame, Penn State, one of those type schools. But I do think that Tennessee can make a big impression on Travion. This evening when they go up there to watch him play. I think he's playing basketball. Up in Virginia.
So there's 3 names there. All right, Jesse, what are the names for possible impact edge rushers in 2021? This is a position that we've really talked about since Jeremy Pruitt's been the head coach here. Who are their edge guys? Where's the difference maker edge-wise?
Well, they've started to host them the last few weeks, and they'll have more on campus this weekend. I mean, Jeremiah Williams is a guy that they like that we had a story on. Where does a guy like Junior Colson kind of fit in the mix? There's been several guys that are in Alabama. What's the 5-star that was up here 2 weeks ago, AP, that I talked to? I'm blanking on his name right now. He plays in Birmingham.
Dylan Brooks.
Dylan Brooks. He's certainly near the top of the list. Now, how does it kind of shake up? He was kind of tight with Kevin Scher, but Ansley's been on him. Rumpf as well. That one's going to be a tough pull. I mean, he's a kid he's been up here a bunch of times. Brooks, I think, has visited Tennessee 4 or 5 times in the last year, but he's also been at Alabama and Auburn about as many times as well. So, but those are a few names. I mean, this is, I think, a fairly decent crop of outside linebacker prospects.
Why do you think, and this person will still know this question, why do you think Tennessee has struggled at that position in recruiting? Why have they not been able to close with more high-profile names there? Anybody got a theory? I'm not just pointing at it.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no theory on that. Some of it's befuddling to me.
Well, I think it's
Ojulari was the miss because he would have been that guy for Tennessee. I mean, he received rankings bumps from every service this year, after a solid senior season and after what he kind of did on the camp circuit over the summer. So it is an issue that needs correcting, though, because these other schools are not having that problem. Well, Alabama's landing Tim Williams. Georgia's landing Mikel Sherman and Nolan Smith. LSU's got B.J. Ojulari. Clemson's haul is incredible this year. So the schools that Tennessee is chasing in terms of wants to be like, both in the recruiting rankings and obviously, translating that to on-field success, those schools are not having that problem. So Tennessee does need to kind of get this fixed in this cycle.
Well, and I think I think it's the most coveted position out there. I mean, it used to be corner, but there's a lot of guys, good athletes. You can find corners, okay? I think when you talk about defensive guys, it's not a 3-tech, it's not an inside nose. I think the most coveted position is the outside edge guy because he's such a difference maker in the game. And now there's so many people running the Saban defense, this type of defense. There's more options for some of those guys to go with. And quite frankly, Georgia's been in a better place, and Alabama and these other schools have been in a better place than Tennessee has.
And I will say, Tennessee does have one guy right now who we'll see. Did they get in late, and does Morvan Joseph outperform, his ranking? I mean, he was a 4-star, but he was not, a top 200, top 150 guy. But he's a guy that Tennessee has penciled in to be one of those edge guys, obviously, in this previous class.
All right, Rob, bonus question. Tennessee likely to land a big man to finish off the class in spring, or are they done?
I mean, for right now, they don't have a scholarship available. Now, that said, one or two has opened up, every spring since Rick's been here, and that's not a Tennessee thing. That's a national trend. I lean towards thinking that there will be somebody else join this class, whether that's a grad transfer, Dylan Cardwell is still out there, the big man from Georgia that took an official visit in the fall. He didn't sign in November, so certainly keep Cardwell in mind. Tennessee's still in contact with him, but I think just had to guess today, and this is based on Rick's track record of at least having a little bit of turnover in the spring, and I know that they would like to add a big, and again whether that's via the transfer route or whether it's Cardwell, I think they'll probably add someone, but again, somebody's got to leave.
All right, Novaval 99 to you, Rob. Rick has mentioned a few times limiting Jordan Bowden's minutes due to performance. Do you think that's something he will really ever do, or is that just talk? Do you think that he will play more of his bench? He's talked about it all year long.
He went in. I talked to him about this on Thursday, and he went in hard. Like I've got to play the freshman. I've got to do it. I've got to make myself do it. Yada yada yada. And it's not the first time he's talked about that, but. You're coming off a game where, John Fulgerson played 35 minutes the other night. Eve Pons played 36 minutes. I just don't think that's sustainable, especially for Fulgerson, because, he's, against a guy like Reggie Perry, that's a tough physical matchup for John. He needs to be down 26, 27, I think. But Rick says these things, then Camwa goes in, misses a defensive switch, Devontae Gaines throws it out of bounds, and boom, they're done for the night. And I just don't know if he's going to get past that. We'll see. I know for sure, like his assistant coaches are telling him that, we need to play these guys. You need to give them a little bit of a longer leash. But it just, on Thursday, that sounds great. Saturday afternoon with 8 minutes left in the first half when, Devontae sells one into the second row. I don't know if that's going to hold up. But we'll see. As for Jordan, I don't think Rick's going to cut his minutes back for performance. And frankly, Jordan's been, certainly, I think, playing well the last few games.
He's played better for sure. He hadn't shot the ball as well as you like, but the other night he got the ball to the rim.
Yeah, that's what he's
was
been
more assertive.
That's what he's been doing in the last 4 games since the Georgia debacle. He has really opened up another window as far as his game goes, putting it on the floor and getting to the rim.
All right, 10 Vol 2004. If the staff lands Beckwith and Weidman, do any receivers get moved to corner? And does Tennessee take McConkey if they miss out on Evans?
No, I don't think the staff's going to take McConkey.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think they're going to sign him to a national level.
And I don't
see a guy moving.
I don't see them moving because they're lower than the number than they want. So they feel like they need to add multiple guys.
All right, VFL 84, with Rocker's contract ending, any idea on the status there and any other coaching news upon this? All right, look, nothing has been formally announced, but the thought has been, the feeling has been, it's been reported in multiple places, Joe Osavat will end up getting the tight ends job. That's not been announced by Jeremy Pruitt at this point, and that would move Brian Niedermeyer to defense. But that's been the feeling and the thought process out there for 10 days or so, that's where that thing is going to land officially.
Especially once they got Jay.
Right. Now the question is, what about Rocker? I think he's just going to work. I don't have any idea. Do you?
Much like Zach Evans, I quit trying to predict that one a long time ago.
I have a feeling he's going to be on the staff here.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll be on the staff.
Yeah, I do think. I think he'll be on Tennessee staff in 2020. Moving
in
forward.
some capacity.
Yeah. All right, Dougie 23. What does Jay Graham's hire mean for the running back room, particularly Eric Gray? Is Graham known for his coaching chops and development of players? Curious to see the improvement of the running backs, especially if a blue chip guy isn't landed in this class, a la Zach Evans. I think Jay. You look at Jay's history. I think Jay's done a good job with running backs. I think his running backs have been productive.
South Carolina, Florida State. Again, I understand why some people have thrown some criticism his way for recruiting, in 2012 here, but nobody could land anybody.
That was a lame duck.
It was a lame duck.
That was the most lame duck staff that's ever been.
Yeah, correct. And as one staff member who's on this staff now, that was on it then, pointed out to me earlier this week, Jay got Derrick Henry to campus like 5 or 6 times and was the only reason that Tennessee was in that at all, going against Alabama, who had won multiple national titles under Nick at that point.
No, I agree. And I think here's the thing about Jay from a recruiting standpoint. He was asking about coaching. I think Jay has coached in this league and has been successful as an on-field coach in this league. From a recruiting standpoint, I think Jay will be better at Tennessee than he was at A&M because I think geographically it's better for him. I think he has more ties to the Carolinas, Virginia, than he does to any place in Texas. And so I think when he got west of the Mississippi, establishing and building relationships was something he was working on in Texas, whereas when he gets back to Tennessee, he's getting reacclimated with some old friends, some old people, some older guys that he's dealt with, coaches, handlers, various things like that he's had to deal with and he's dealt with in the Carolinas for years. I think that's an easier transition for him to do that than it was to go from Florida State to Texas A&M.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I think that's something that is not apparent in recruiting a lot of time is, I mean, in Jay's case, former players that he played. I mean, how many of those guys now, even if they're not high school coaches, are members of the community, that are dialed in, different places. I mean, we all know a lot of guys like that who maybe they're not the high school coach, but maybe they coach youth football, or maybe they had some kid on their basketball team with their own kids at some point in time. There's a lot of dudes like that sprinkled around.
I mean, I feel like I knocked out this question in the column I wrote.
Right.
I mean, I one of the bonuses or pluses I thought in the hire was that I think I wrote that he has legitimate chops as an assistant coach. Carlos Williams at Florida State was not a running back when he got to Florida State, and he ended up scoring 20-some-odd touchdowns. That was a guy that Jay helped develop at that position. Obviously, Dalvin Cook was a phenomenal talent, but he did quite well under Jay. Devontae Freeman, Trevion Williams at A&M, had the single season all-purpose yardage. So I think the next step for Jay is, can he bring the most out of a guy like Ty Chandler, who has potential, but we haven't really seen it come together to be that, I think, kind of complete back that maybe folks thought he was going to be 3 years ago when he came here from NBA.
All right, VFL 84 wants to know any 21 prospects to keep an eye on in terms of a commitment watch or somebody that Tennessee's really surging forward for you, like where they're at with 21s. Not necessarily going to commit immediately, but Tennessee's positioned themselves well.
Well, I mean, I'm interested to see where they are coming out this weekend with two guys. First one being Damian Robinson. And
he was actually a name I forgot, at outside linebacker.
I'm not going to say that it's Isaac Washington 2.0 here, but I do think that there's a little bit of a shot there potentially, for him. And then the other one would be the tight end from the state of Georgia, Miles Campbell. I think that one's another one that, at least bears, looking at going into this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But, I mean, I think you'll see some Tennessee continue to search for. I don't think you're going to see Tennessee come out with 3 or 4 commitments on this last weekend before the dead period. But I do think Campbell's a guy that's really intrigued by Tennessee, obviously, and Robinson's been down here multiple times. Look, Joe Osavet's got 3 or 4 guys from Maryland coming down this way for the weekend. He has done a good job getting guys to come to campus,
That's right.
And they're supposed to be at campus this weekend. Volunteered 87. Does Fulmer spend more time, less time, or what you'd expect on sports like tennis, swimming, etc., versus his passion for football? Secondly, on Fulmer, how do you feel he does on the fundraising side of the AD duties? Look, I mean, football drives is the train that pays all the bills, and has he dismissed tennis, swimming, or any other sport? Absolutely not.
We watched him walk out of the complex two Saturdays ago to go to a tennis match.
Right. Is football the focal point? It better be, right, Rob?
Yeah, that's why he got the job.
That's
why he's the athletic director.
Right, and is to fix it. In terms of fundraising, I think the more you win, the easier it is to fundraise. And I think that if football can continue to grow, I think you'll see their fundraising continue to be.
And I think he's good. I think he's comfortable with that.
I
that
think
kind
so.
of stuff.
Yeah,
very comfortable.
And he did that role with the president when he was fundraising on the academic side, and has no problem going out and speaking and working on fundraising. So I don't think that's an issue in any way, shape, or form.
And the coffers are only going to continue to fill up here when you get the $46 million or whatever it was that came out, and that doesn't even, and that's with the quote unquote bad CBS deal.
Right. That's the bad TV deal.
That's the bad TV deal. The other one's going to kick in with an extra $20 million here in 2 years.
And that's why you see schools like Mississippi State paying $5 million to coaches. Everybody wants to know, how did you do that? You're getting that $46 million, and you know what's coming.
Bo Pelini getting almost $2 million to be a defensive coordinator.
A lot of people are spending money before they get it, because they know what's coming in the new TV deal. And you've got some places that people are going, hey, let's just go build something or renovate something because we need to spend some money somehow, some way here, which is crazy to think, but that's really what happens. All right, V4LZ. V4LZ, Austin, I got that one right. Do coaches sell strength of schedule to potential recruits? Obviously, if you come to the SEC, that conference's talent transcends the NFL, but playing schools like Oklahoma, home and away, is that something specifically Tennessee might sell? Big games don't happen as often as they once did.
I think when you have I think some schools sell that big neutral site game. I'm sure they talk about it. They play Oklahoma, but I think if you play in this league, it just kind of sells itself, because everybody knows it's the best league, the most competitive league.
Yeah, and don't you? For me, it's the appeal for a kid or his parents, if they're really, thinking that way, is not so much playing a national TV game in prime time. It's like NFL scouts, and how many are in the press box every week for an SEC game?
I think if you're Oklahoma, you sell it more than
I
you
agree
than
with
if
that,
you're
for
Tennessee.
sure.
I think Oklahoma
Yeah.
sells more. Hey, we're going home and home against
For
the
sure.
SEC.
If you're a kid with NFL aspirations, every NFL scout or every NFL scouting department is going to watch your game against Georgia, your game against Florida, your game against Alabama. You're going to get seen.
Yeah.
The exposure is not going to be an issue if you go anywhere in the SEC.
Yeah. All right, Go Vols 21. I'm going to throw this to you, Jesse, because it starts with one of your favorite words. Optics suggests Asavat's doing well in the DMV area, at least getting some interest in the Northeast. He's paid his dues on staff, and Pruitt obviously appears to have faith in him. Is this Pruitt giving him a one-year show-me-what-you-can-do type deal, or do you think this is Pruitt more of a longer-term deal? I don't think he's going to get a one-year deal. I think if this thing goes through and they sign it and everything becomes official, I think he's on a 2-year contract. Because I think everybody gets a 2-year contract. I don't think he's given a 1-year deal.
I agree, but I think every coach and these guys would tell you that behind the scenes understand that they're just 1 year away from not being on staff the next year. So Joe's done a good job. I don't know how much paying his due. He's paid his dues going up to the JUCO and that kind of stuff. But he's been here for 2 years as an off-field assistant. That's not atypical, and especially when you see some of the other guys like Charlie Strong. Are in similar QC roles now. I do think Joe has done a nice job getting folks to campus. I think his ties and kind of dogged effort with Christian Valou, that probably Tennessee's 1A or 1B quarterback target right now in the 21 class, has helped him, and so now we'll get to really see him truly spread his wings if he is on staff as kind of an on-field recruiter.
All right, Deshaun 13, surprise breakout player on each side of the ball. I'll go first on this deal. For me, I think defensively, I think Quavaris Crouch is going to be a different player because I think he's going to play in a position that he's much more comfortable in. So I'll go Crouch on the defensive side. Offensively, I think you're going to see. I don't think Eric Gray's going to do Vanderbilt, every game.
If he does, then Tennessee may win it all.
Right. But I do think you'll continue to see, because the offensive line is going to be better, more continuity. They should grow if they stay healthy. I think you'll see Eric Gray be more productive like he was the last couple of games compared to the middle stretch when he was a non-factor.
I'm going to ride the hot hand and the notion that D'Angelo Gibbs is going to be.
That's who I was going to say.
Who they hope he is.
Okay.
So I'll go him on offense. Defensively, I'm going to go.
You want to go Flowers, but he's hurt all the time.
That's what I was going to. That's it was on the tip of my tongue as well.
No, I wasn't. I was going to go.
I just knew AP liked Trayvon.
I was going to go Alontae Taylor.
I like Trayvon too. I just don't know if he can stay on the field.
Yeah.
Alontae Taylor.
Yeah. Alontae's a good pick. They need Flowers to be good. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And
he may be one of the most important guys on defense.
And my other pick for that very same reason will be Kayvon Bennett, because I think they need Kayvon to be not just a Robin, but they need him to kind of assume Darrell Taylor's Batman role in terms of production, and Taylor was not always the most consistent, but if you eliminate that from the equation, Tennessee's really going to be missing some pass rush in 2020, so they need Bennett to kind of take a leap. And he's progressively gotten better, so I'm not saying it's not in there, but I think they need him to be a breakout guy.
Hey, let me tell you a little bit about Blue Water Climate Control, where you get comfort today. When your system breaks, you want a company that will get there fast and do the right repair the right way the first time. Blue Water responds to more than 90% of their calls the same day that they are received. Blue Water offers 24-hour service, and all of their technicians are trained and certified. You can call Blue Water today at 865-299-2290. That's 865-299-2290. $22.90. Mention Volquest, you'll get a diagnostic free with repairs. Excuse me. You'll get your diagnostic test free with repairs. Again, that's 865-299-2290 for Blue Water Climate Control. Jumping back in here to the podcast, Vols 31-31. Are you surprised with how many kids have said there's a lack of communication with Tennessee coaches? Hardy has said it. Now Peyton Page has said it as well. I've not heard that from Peyton Page.
Yeah, he said it to Friedman the other day.
That he
just
hasn't heard?
Well, yeah, I mean, he, likes him a lot, doesn't hear from him as much as he'd like to, something to that effect.
Well, it's interesting because in Orlando he was not talking about that.
Yeah.
He was talking a lot about how he heard from.
And kids,
He was coming off a good Clemson visit, so.
Here, I'll read you exactly what he said here.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes that's a little bit,
Tennessee is on me right now. He said it's Coach Niedermeyer and Coach Tracy. They're really cool. We don't talk often, but I feel we have a connection.
I mean, they got to get him back on campus, and they got to continue to work there. I do think that Tennessee, and I think that this is something moving forward, that they probably have to start the process a little earlier sometimes of getting things moving. You know what I'm saying?
I think if
kids, hey, I'm already locked into this camp date at X school. You don't hear that as much with Tennessee. I think that's something they can do a better job.
Yeah, like
of.
right now, as we sat here on the last day of January, the invitation should be going out for the April 18th Orange and White game. I mean, because people start penciling stuff in, and there'll be other games that day. So I'd be working hard to go ahead and get those kids, hearing that date and locking them in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100% on that. Let's go to Volquest. So with the staff truly only recruiting one tight end this year in Darnell Washington, since they saw both Gilbert and Beckwith as wide receivers, should we see in that a direction that this offense? Should we see that as a direction the offense is going? Should we expect more big wide receivers in the slot, close to the line of scrimmage, and less two tight end sets, or maybe less formations with a tight end at all? Basically, what he's saying is Jim Chaney going to spread it out a little bit more and get away from some tight end stuff?
We'll see. I mean, this is something I want to kind of dive into more during the offseason, because Tennessee ran a ton of 12 personnel this last season, and not having Dominique Wood-Anderson on the roster anymore, who assumes that number 2 role, is Warren capable of even playing half as many snaps? Where's a guy like Sean Brown or Jackson Lowe kind of fitting into the equation? That's going to be one of the, because that was such a fixture with what they did a lot of times, especially with some of the zone running game stuff. So having both, Pope being able to be utilized in multiple spots with Wood-Anderson right there on the line.
All right, Rob, to you. Vescovi's clearly getting more comfortable on the floor. He's playing, quote, his game. Is Barnes encouraging him to continue to play his game with some of the no-look passes and some of the risky stuff he's doing, or is he trying to rein that in and get him to play a little more under control and not be as risky with the ball?
No, I think I don't think Rick has a real problem with the kind of passes that he's talking about, and I'd have to go break it down, but the majority of his turnovers, I don't think have come from him, trying to do something, dropping it behind to somebody. I mean, I think it's just been sloppy or, not, dribbling into bad situations. And I think pretty clearly he's getting a handle on it. Also think Rick's taking the ball out of his hands a little bit more than he did lately. I give it to Josiah, which is, maybe limited turnovers a little bit, but I don't know that it's helped the offense. But I don't think Rick has a problem with the kind of flair that the poster's asking about. I think that, as long as he, kind of blends that in with not getting himself into trouble, then I think Rick's fine with him. Again, I think most of his turnovers have not been from, trying to make the flashy assist as opposed to, just getting himself into bad spots on the court, being lazy, gets pressure, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. T. Francis wants to know, Tennessee played a neutral site non-conference game every year from 2015 through 2018, but doesn't have one scheduled in the future. Do you see a shift in college football back to home and homes? That would seem like that's Fulmer's preference, where Hart loved the neutral site games. If the playoff were to expand to 8 teams in the future, it seems like the reward might outweigh the risk in scheduling teams like Oklahoma, since you could get in the playoff with 2 losses, whereas with a 4th playoff team, there isn't much incentive for a game like that other than financially.
I think the poster hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think Phillip covets games in Neyland Stadium way more so than he does some NFL venue. So All those games, including the one in West Virginia over in Charlotte, was locked in. I see Tennessee going back to more of the traditional home and home, unless it's a real, there's a lot of either backing / perks to going to a neutral site venue.
Now that you're selling beer for $12 and $13 a pop, how much more is a home game worth?
That's true. Here's the other thing too. Part of the reason why the neutral site games were such a big deal with Dave Hart, he was he was in the middle of, quite frankly, a pissing contest with the city over taxes. Okay, and he was going to prove to them that, hey, if you're going to take all this money for parking and taxes, and you're going to charge us for all this other stuff, and we're having to give up so much of the quote gate, so to speak, we'll go to a neutral site game. We'll take a home, and then he used it, hey, recruiting and all this other stuff. But he was trying to make a point to city leaders and county leaders too that you need us, okay? And that's, there were some things Dave Hart did well at Tennessee. Financially, got Tennessee out of some bad situations. There were some other fights he got into that didn't end up going well for him, a la the Lady Vols name, obviously, which ended up costing him his job. But part of the neutral site thing and why that was such a big deal for him is he was trying to stick it a little bit to some deals that he didn't think were very good deals in terms of taxes and stuff like that the university has to pay to the city. So that was part of the reason why they went there. Let's go to Sly here with the O-line, D-line possibility being a strength for 2020. What other unit could possibly sneak up and become a strength? Also, how much stock are you guys putting into that quarterback room? I guess you mean how good could a quarterback room could be. What unit outside of the two lines of scrimmages do you like on this team?
Corner.
I like corner. If it's it's not the overall secondary, but I agree with Jesse. I think there's some depth at corner, some experience at corner. And then I kind of like Tennessee's running backs. I mean, providing ties back. I mean, they're not. There are several backfields in the SEC that probably have more talent, but as far as experience and
well, and if you're saying that if you're
going off the offensive line is going to be better,
the offensive line is going to be better.
They should be better.
They should be better, yeah. And the wild card there, I mean, if you add a guy like Zach Evans' talent to the room, then that only elevates the rest of the group.
Yes.
What do you think of the quarterback room?
I mean,
Unknown?
Well, I mean, it's better than it has been in a long time. I mean, you've got a multi-year starter and a 5-star freshman coming in, and then you've got Brian Maurer, who has, certainly been inconsistent, but has at least played and flashed some potential. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of teams who would like to have Tennessee's quarterback room.
I would say get back to me at the end of what it looks like after the spring.
Depending on who's here and who performs well. How well does Bailey perform in the spring? Where's JG? Where's Brian Maurer's focus in the spring? Lots of questions, but there is some talent there. They got some guys who can throw it.
And right now it is unequivocally deep.
Right.
I mean, it's deeper.
They got options.
Deeper than most.
That's for sure. All right, a couple more, and then we're going to wrap it up here. T.N. Hemp's work. Who do you see as the most likely impact freshman? We sort of talked about that, but here's his follow-up. If Tennessee lands Weidman and Beckwith, how does this receiving class compare to previous receiving classes that Tennessee's brought in? Have to think it's pretty high up there with Hyatt and Weidman, both being top 100 type players, as well as the two Jimmies, with Beckwith being sought after as an athlete at tight end. We have to go back and think. I don't know that it's Meacham, Swain, Brett Smith,
or to Rick Rogers, Justin Hunter.
Yeah. Probably not as good as those two, but it's going to have some depth to it.
It's better than the last couple classes.
Yeah, it is a pretty good haul.
Jimmy's up there and right outside the top 100, and Weidman's obviously got a nice ranking. I think Beckwith's probably underranked, to be honest with you, just based off the fact that the kid's only played 18 months of football. He never put any kind of effort into it until Will Hester got to Florence.
Only 18 months?
Yeah, 2 years.
Wow. All right, Charlie Work. Rob, is Victor Bailey a better version of Jordan Bowden? This year's Jordan Bowden?
No.
What do you think of Bailey?
I mean, Bailey's a really, really good athlete, but he's not he's definitely a combo guard. I think Rick this offseason has really tried to push him to develop as a point guard, or not this offseason, but this season where he's sitting out. He's probably a better athlete than Jordan, just in terms of quick twitch, body control, that kind of thing. But he's not got Jordan's skill. Certainly not as a shooter, I don't believe. And Probably a better defender, at least when it comes to smaller, quicker guys. I mean, he's gonna be a good player for Tennessee, but I would not look for him to be an all SEC caliber player.
All right, Rooster J37. When is Phillip Fulmer going to get Nike to put the double stripes back on the pants, get larger numbers on the jerseys? I don't know about any more larger numbers on the jerseys. They're, as a spotter, there are times I think they're too big. The double stripes are coming back and should be back next year.
Yeah.
That is the plan there. All right, last one. Vol Lover. We'll go last two. We've heard a lot about Kasem Hill and his potential role in his team. Is there not a possibility he could be used as a wide receiver, given his team's need at the position, maybe as a punter or kick returner? It would seem to be a waste of a talented athletic player if you don't use him somewhere else. I don't know that athletically he can play anywhere else.
He looks like more of a fullback.
I don't know where we've heard a lot about Kasem Hill.
I was getting ready to say that. That was going to be my point too, Jesse.
I mean, and no dog in the kid, but I mean, this is a guy who, yes, did start games for a Power 5 program, but then upon getting hurt, did not have many available options to remain on scholarship elsewhere.
He 100% does not look like a receiver.
No.
Not at all. Just linebacker, fullback.
Yeah, I'm just not sure athletically where he could help any other position.
And I didn't give you an offensive wild card or offensive whatever,
sorry.
but I'm just thinking about it. No, I'm just thinking about
blew
it.
it off. I just shortchanged him.
Velus Jones, they need him. He's another guy I think offensively. They need
starting the hype train.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not.
You got D'Angelo Gibbs putting him in a gold jacket instead of in the Canton.
I'm saying they need that. If you give Velus Jones that spot, he needs to be productive more than just returning a kick or two a game.
Yeah, if you're gonna count an initial on that one, then yeah, I agree with you. You got to get more production out of that. Matt I wants to know, is there a timetable on a Jeremy Banks return? Any chance he will be a part of winter workouts or spring practice for Tennessee? Anybody?
I think you'll see Jeremy Banks back on this football team at some point.
Sooner rather than later.
I don't know if there's a firm timetable.
I think it would be summertime.
Yeah, I think it's after spring practice.
I agree.
I mean, that way you could sell it, publicly as he was suspended for basically the whole academic year, and as opposed to him taking part in spring practice.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
I think they'd like to have him for spring practice, though.
Oh,
if they can get
I think
him.
they'd like to have him for winter workouts later this afternoon if they could get him there. I just don't think time-wise they're going to push. It's going to get pushed to that point. I think it's probably summertime.
If he does come back, does Q stay inside though?
Does Banks stay at linebacker?
I think Banks stays at linebacker
too. So
and I think Q ends up
might go back outside.
Yeah,
we'll see. Depends on how Q will get the opportunity in the spring if Banks is not here to really show himself. So that one will be interesting. So lots going on. Obviously, Junior Day this weekend. Plenty of coverage of that. We're going to chase everything we hear on Zach Evans as well as Weidman and Dee Beckwith and everybody else. I don't think anybody's doing anything until Wednesday.
No.
I don't think if you get to this point, I don't think there's going to be any news coming.
And
from
if you
anybody.
love Braj, just say a prayer between now and then that all three of these kids do something before 10 a.m.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes for them to do something on Wednesday, but we'll keep you tracking on all that, coverage of Tennessee basketball as well. But that's going to do it for the Volquest.com podcast, brought to you by Blue Water Climate Control. For Rob Lewis, Jesse Simonton, and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Friday and great weekend, everybody.